There are children who come into this world without being awaited. Some lives seem forgotten before they can even form memories, left aside in the quiet corners of existence. Yet in the eyes of God, no one is ever worthless. No one is truly abandoned. Every soul, no matter how small or overlooked, is cherished with an unfathomable love. Today, I want to share with you a true story. A story that shines with hope, compassion, and the grace of God. It is the story of a little boy left behind, and a priest who saw what no one else could see in him. It is a story that reminds us that, in the eyes of the Creator, every person matters. Every story is worth telling. On a bitterly cold winter morning, just as the sun's first rays struggled to pierce the heavy grey clouds, an aging priest prepared for Mass in a weathered little church nestled in the countryside of Italy. The church, with its crumbling stone walls and worn pews, stood as a quiet witness to the hardships and hopes of the tiny village. As the priest lit the candles and arranged the altar, a faint sound tugged at the edge of his hearing, a soft, desperate cry drifting through the thick wooden doors. Curiosity and concern stirred within him. He pulled his coat tighter around his thin shoulders and hurried to the entrance. There, upon the church's icy steps, he found a sight that made his heart ache. A battered old basket sat in the freezing dawn, and inside it, swaddled in thin blankets, was a baby boy. The child could not have been more than 2 weeks old. His tiny limbs were frail, his skin tinged blue from the cold, and most telling of all, there was no note, no clue, nothing to say who his parents were or why he had been left alone. The villagers gathered as word spread, but none came forward to claim the child. No one knew who his mother or father was. No one seemed willing to offer him a home. The old priest looked down at the fragile infant, his heart heavy with sorrow, but also with a sense of calling. He lifted the child into his arms, cradling him gently, and whispering words that would become a promise. You are not abandoned. You are a child of God. And if no one will take you in, then I will. So began a new chapter in the priest's life, one he had never expected. He brought the baby back to the small parish house beside the church. Day after day, he cared for him, warming bottles, soothing fevered cries, watching over him through sleepless nights. The villagers were surprised. Who would have thought an old priest, who had never raised children, could become such a devoted caregiver? But the priest never saw this as a burden. He saw it as a grace, a chance to live out the very message he preached. That love is not limited by blood or expectation. It is a calling to see Christ in the most vulnerable among us. The boy grew up within the walls of the church. Before he could even speak, he learned to murmur prayers, his small voice echoing in the sanctuary. He learned to kneel before he could walk steadily, and his first words were not spoken to a biological father, but to the priest who had become his papa. In the eyes of the world, theirs was an unusual family, a priest and an orphaned boy. But in the eyes of God, it was a family built on love and faith. As the boy grew older, he began to ask questions about his origins. The priest answered him gently, never hiding the truth, but always emphasizing the love that had claimed him. You were left at the church's door, he would say, but you were never left alone. God watched over you, and so did I. The boy listened, and though he sometimes wondered about his birth parents, he never felt the sting of abandonment for long. The church community became his family. The priest became his father in every way that mattered. Years passed, and the boy blossomed into a thoughtful, humble young man. One evening, as they sat together after evening prayers, the young man spoke from the depths of his heart. I do not feel sorrow for being abandoned, he said, because here, in this church, I was given a family greater than I could have imagined, the family of God. I may not know who my mother is, but I know that I have a mother in heaven, Our Lady, who is always by my side. He devoted himself to his studies, to prayer, and to serving others. Each night he would kneel before the crucifix, whispering his gratitude. If I was born so that I could come to know you, Lord, then I have never been an orphan. When he turned 20, the young man stood before the priest who had raised him. His eyes shone not with sadness, but with purpose. Father, he said, I want to become a priest. I want to give my life to God, just as he gave me life when I was nothing. I want to love those who have no one to love them. Tears welled in the old priest's eyes, not tears of regret, but of deep, abiding joy. The seed he had planted in love so many years ago had blossomed into a life of service and grace. The boy who had once been left to the cold was now ready to become a beacon of warmth and hope to others. Perhaps this story is not famous. Perhaps the world will never know the name of the little boy who was left at the church's door, or the priest who took him in. But in the heart of God, no story is forgotten. No person is ever truly abandoned. If you have ever felt rejected, if you have ever believed you were unworthy or unwanted, remember this. God holds you close, just as the priest held the abandoned child. His love is not reserved for the few or the favored, but for everyone, especially those who feel lost or alone. Let us ask for the grace to welcome others as God has welcomed us. May every family, every community, always have room for those who need compassion and mercy most. Because only by loving, only by opening our hearts, do we truly become children of God. Amen.